I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about comments that the Pope made the other day about, he was asked about Dick Durbin getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, which Dick Durbin backed out, but they asked about, the backlash about the even suggestion from it because Dick Durbin is pro-choice. So the Pope started talking about how, well, people can be pro-life but be inconsistent, like they might be for the death penalty. And the scripture is clear on the death penalty, and the Catholic history also did support the death penalty, and they eventually just kind of evolved from it. And Michael Knowles went over that when he talked about it in his segment. But if you just look at the text of the scripture, there's nothing wrong with the death penalty. But if you're talking about innocent babies who have done nothing wrong versus people who've had due process and, been convicted by a jury of their peers, and they've gone on to maybe murder multiple people, I think that's obviously very different than people are like, you shouldn't harm an innocent baby. I also want to talk about The View, and Sonny, surprise, shocker, said something really, really dumb. So I want to touch on that because it does also have to do with the topic of abortion and how pro-life people are apparently hypocrites. And she's also 100%, I guess, against the death penalty, which is interesting considering some of her positions. And I also want to touch on Megyn Kelly and her pushing back against her critics, because a lot of people are demanding that she says something about Tucker, that she condemns Candace Owens. And to me, her stance doesn't really make any sense. But we'll talk about it. But before we jump into everything, you guys can let me know if this fan is too loud. I don't know why my air is not turning on right now. And I just don't want to sit here dying all day. So if you could just forgive me. And I just washed my hair. I pressed it real good. I have this hot comb brush thing. It's really, really good. I used that, and then I used the flat iron. And I just already feel it just poofing up. And I'm I'll sweat. My face is the first place I'll really sweat. My nose, I'm sure you guys have probably noticed over time, that's where it goes first. But my back of my head will sweat, and but it's already poofing up back here. And I work so hard. I thought about taking a picture just as soon as I was done, because it looks so nice right now. And it'll just keep expanding. So I might have to put my hair up in a ponytail or bun or something when I get off with you guys, because I'm actually ministering tonight in church, and I don't want my hair to just I guess while I'm up. So we'll see what happens. It is warm outside too. I don't know where all you guys are at, but it's actually, I don't know, we have a false fall in Michigan where it might seem to start getting a little cold, and then in September it's summer again. And so we're still in the summer season. I wonder by Halloween if it'll be super cold and miserable, when kids go trick-or-treating. But it was warm today. I went out for a walk, and I walked to this Coney Island that I like, and it was warm, not crazy unbearable, but I'd rather go walking when it's cool. Missouri's got a false fall too, they said. Yeah, it's crazy, but I do remember a lot of hot Septembers. I mean, we're just out of September going into October, so maybe by the end of October it'll be miserable. And but I don't know, maybe we're all out of rain, because it was rainy, our spring kind of sucked. It was a lot of rain. But I guess maybe it's good for the plants. Get a lot of rain. Anyway, please go to blacktunews.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. He's like, what to do here? Please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream. Run my side, all that good stuff. So guys get support. I very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. I did add a link in the description of this. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, most of my links are that are normally there that take you to like Twitter and Facebook and all this stuff is gone because I wanted to put these other links. And so there's 2 links in the description right now. One of them is a link to my page for Bigger, so people can go pre-order my book. So I encourage you guys to pre-order my book Bigger. And I have this is my proof copy. This isn't my like normal copy. So there's a paperback and there's a hardcover. The hardcover is really nice. Like, I know it's obviously more money, but if you guys want the hardcover, I would get the hardcover. So, you know, there's like a page of him graduating high school. My sister did like a live making the bookmarks, some bookmarks for it. And they're like, why does the dad have a mustache? I'm like, because it's funny. It's funny. It's funny. That's what I was like, he's got to have a mustache. So, yeah, it's about a little baby dinosaur who just dreams of being bigger. It's a really cute book. So I recommend that you guys get it and support if you can. So you guys could go ahead and pre-order the book. And there's a link right in the description of this episode. There's also a link to the painting party. So we've been talking about doing this for a while because my sister, who did the artwork for my picture book, she does painting parties. And so I thought it'd be cool if we did one. So I want to do one in person and I like to do one online. So if you're interested, please go ahead and sign up. There's a link. It's not asking you for a ticket, but just, I think it says it on there that they'd be like $35. If you want supplies mailed to you though, it'll bump it up like $15. But if enough people don't want, you know, that option, I guess we just won't do that option. But yeah, please check out those links and if you're interested in any of that stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the news. I told you guys that I was starting to come down with something, and I definitely started the coming of the down with the something. So you guys can maybe hear it a little bit in my nose, with my throat, my voice and stuff. And I think I'll be probably well enough to sing tonight, and I obviously have to teach, but it's annoying for sure. Maybe it was a little cold in my room, and then I had turned down the air, and now it wouldn't turn back on when I tried to turn it back on. So that's why the fan is going. I don't know if you guys can hear it. You guys can probably hear it. Hopefully it's not too distracting. If it is, I can turn it off and suffer, but you guys let me know. Okay, so where to start? Let's go ahead and start with the Pope. So this was making the rounds. Dick Durbin, there was a cardinal who wanted to put him in give him like a lifetime achievement award, and Dick Durbin like backed out of it, and he said he wasn't going to accept. But people were upset because, and there were like bishops who pushed back on it because they said, "Hey, he's pro-choice, he's pro-abortion, and the church is against that." So Pope Leo was asked about it. And, you know, he gave an answer that I did think was great. I'm not Catholic, just so you guys know. I've seen some other Catholic people like Michael Knowles talk about it and so on. But I'm not a fan of his answer. You guys can let me know what you think when you see it. If you haven't seen it, it happened a couple days ago. So some of you probably already seen it.
Just wanted to ask one thing that has become a bit of a divisive subject in the US right now, with Cardinal Cupich giving an award to Senator Durbin. Some people of faith are having a hard time with understanding this because he is he's for legalized abortion. How would you help people of faith right now decipher that, feel about that, and how do you feel about that?
I'm not terribly familiar with the particular case. I think that it's very important to look at the overall work that a senator has done during, if I'm not mistaken, 40 years of service in the United States Senate. I understand the difficulty and the tensions, but I think, as I myself have spoken in the past, it's important to look at many issues that are related to what is the teaching of the church. Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them, but I would ask first and foremost that there be greater respect for one another and that we search together, both as human beings, in that case as American citizens or citizens of the state of Illinois, as well as Catholics, to say we need to really look closely at all of these ethical issues and to find the way forward as church. Church teaching on each one of those issues is very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, so he says that the teaching on those issues are very clear, which I'm assuming means abortion is wrong. As far as the death penalty thing, there is a history of the Catholic Church being for the death penalty. And then from my understanding, it morphed into, well, we don't need to apply the death penalty because these people who are, I don't know, I guess lunatics and dangerous to society, we have a way to kind of isolate them from the rest of society. Therefore, we don't need to execute the death penalty. I wouldn't say that's the only reason why we have the death penalty, especially if you go back to like Genesis and just you shed an innocent person's blood, your blood is shed because that's a very big deal that you did that thing, and it just requires that sort of punishment to show how terrible your crime was because life is so precious. Like that's the deal. I mean, Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image, and you, and then it goes on to say, you'll be fruitful and multiply, whatever. But so God made man in his own image. Mankind is precious. Mankind isn't like dogs and cats and goldfishes, and you guys can love your dogs and your pets and stuff and feel that they're your babies and stuff, but they're and they all have purpose, and God cares about them and stuff too. And but as far as you being made in the image of God, that's a distinction that human beings have. And if you shed the blood of a person, and not just any blood, I mean, warfare, if you take a life during self-defense, those things are different than murder. But when you're talking about like a premeditated homicide, which that's obviously wrong, and you can do the death penalty. And as far as you saying, well, that's the Old Testament, I mean, it's Genesis, it's kind of like a big deal. It's repeated continuously, throughout the Old Testament. In murder, still wrong in the New. But in Romans, it talks about how the government bears the sword. So that's something that we do delegate to authorities. We shouldn't just go out and like take vigilante justice, By the way, when people bring up like scriptures on like stoning folks or whatever, people who do those kind of punishments on the Old Testament, instead of people doing that privately and like doing some kind of like, we decide that we're going to do this. No, it's something that if it rises to that level where you have to face some kind of capital punishment, like the community has to be involved in dispensing justice, not you just deciding to do it or the parents deciding to do it or something like that. So there's a lot of context you can add to these things, but there is a church history of even popes executing justice. But as far as the death penalty, it is a biblical thing. I know a lot of people don't like it. I know other people in principle might not like it because, what if you convict the wrong person and they're executed? I think there's some crimes where you can't pretty much get that wrong. But there's a reason why, it has to be beyond any reasonable doubt with our justice system, even at the risk of maybe someone who did it getting away. So do we make mistakes? Yeah, but in the case of something like down in Florida, they decided to make I think child rapists, they can get the death penalty, right? If they find that DNA on the child, on a minor, and they've been violently sexually assaulted, and let's say even someone's impregnated with a man's seed, I don't see how you make a mistake with that one, you know? So in a case like that, you still wouldn't be for the death penalty. Now, apparently it's very expensive when someone's on death row. Maybe it's from all the appeals and stuff. So we don't do it like efficiently, I guess. Maybe we should just get better at it, I guess. So there's other reasons why I've heard why people oppose it. But as far as people opposing it from a Christian perspective, I don't see how you get that. I can see how you personally don't like it, but as far as you thinking it's unbiblical, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. But I don't like this saying, well, oh, you know, who could all get it right or something. let me play it back, because there was he said something, and I'm like, the answer is the Bible, and I want to get it right. So let me go back and replay some of his what he said.
Pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them, but
I don't know if anyone has all these are complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them. I'm like, what do you mean? Nobody has all the truth on them. What do you mean? we have the Bible. What do you mean? I don't know if anyone. What do you mean? We do. We have the truth, the whole truth. That's about the truth. What do you mean? Aren't you the Pope? Aren't you the Pope? Isn't the whole thing that we can't leave that into the Protestants? Oh, they have that church, and if they don't like what that church says, they'll just go to a new church. They don't have any kind of structure, but we, the Catholic Church, we have all this structure and tradition. That's how we get things right. That's how we know things are right. You may say you hear from God, and you may say you hear from God. If it's two different things, how do we know what's right? We know what's right because we are the church, and we have all this history and tradition. And it's like, well, who can know? Who can know? Aren't y'all supposed to know? Isn't that supposed to be like a selling point? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, again, I'm not Catholic. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but that just seemed like a wild statement to me. Who can know? Who can know? And then trying in making the comparison. First of all, he opened up with, "I'm not familiar with the situation," and he could have just left it at that. I'm not familiar with that situation. I can look more into it, and I'll get back with you. And then he could have sent out a little press release, on it that's very polished and thought out instead of something off the cuff. And maybe he would have had a better answer than that. Now, I'm not making the case that he doesn't believe that it's wrong to have an abortion. I believe he's probably, understands that the church is clear. I would say the Bible is clear on it. As a matter of fact, you can see my poster behind me for my book. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. I wrote that. So I believe that the Bible makes it abundantly clear that abortion is wrong. Isabel David, no, her name's not Isabel Davis. Who's that girl who's she's Catholic. She just joined the Daily Wire. I think her name is Isabel. I just think Isabel Davis is it Isabel Brown? There's a new person who just joined Daily Wire. And she was on Piers Morgan's show debating some guy named John something, and pro-choicers share like some line of him all the time, and he's just very aggressive and always attacking the church. I assumed he was atheist. There was some kind of caption I read that he was Catholic. I'm like, what? He seems very much a atheist to me. That's news to me. If he's not, he considers himself to be a believer, but he was going on and on trying to say things like, well, where does the Bible say that abortion is wrong? Okay, where does Jesus ever say it's wrong to push people down the stairs intending to break their neck? Like, we don't need to spell out every situation that's a premeditated homicide, guys. We can look at the scriptures, we can look at the teachings, and we can figure out that it's wrong to take a life, an innocent life, unjustly. And then we can ask ourselves, okay, what is an abortion? It is an induced abortion, because we want to get technical here. An induced abortion is the termination of a pregnancy, okay, resulting in the death of the embryo or the fetus. Because some people be like, a C-section is an abortion. I'm like, go in the goat pit and just shut up. If you don't know what the goat pit is, there's a movie called Ready or Not, and the character falls in this pit with a bunch of dead goats. It became a thing between me and my siblings. We just send memes of gifts of like a pit, like a black pit and a goat. Go in the goat pit. Just shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay. But obviously, abortion is a killing, because why else would you want one if there wasn't a growing human inside of you? That's the thing that's upsetting you, right? You're not just removing a corpse, you are doing things to make sure it comes out dead. So it's a deliberate homicide there. And I would say it's unjust, because people mostly get abortions for lifestyle reasons. If you apply those reasons outside of abortion, we would say that they're unjust. So I would say that they're unjust. So like, is it alive? Is it human? Is it a baby? Is it made in the image of God? Is really the important question. And yes. So considering that, I don't know, God seemed to be really against child sacrifice in the Bible. God hates hands that shed innocent blood. There's just lots of things that we could go, oh yeah, abortion isn't cool. And then there's all this church history too, as well, particularly, if you want to say Catholic Church history, going on repeatedly saying that abortion is wrong, that abortion is murder, and even referring to, the women as murderers, that abortion makes women murderers, which is interesting because there's a lot of Catholic pro-life apologists that wouldn't go that far. But you can certainly find that in the history. If you go to Catholic Answers, they have a bunch of on their site about abortion and early church history, with the Didache and letters to Barnabas and other things like that have it right in there about early writings of church history condemning abortion. And sometimes, like, there's this critical scholar named Dan. He's talked about abortion a lot and tried to make it seem like the Bible isn't pro-life or whatever, and he's pro-choice personally and politically, but it's funny that I've never seen him bring up like early church history. Like, a lot of people want to pretend like pro-lifers just decided on this in the 1950s or 70s or something like that, when, like, no, there's all this history here. So and then that guy on Piers Morgan, he brought up, he's like, well, in Exodus, I think it's 21, it says it affirms that they think of the child as property. And it's like, no, you're talking about when two men are striving together, and then there's a pregnant woman, and I guess they're fighting and tumbling or something, and somehow they end up injuring the pregnant woman, and they're like, if the baby comes out and there's no further injury, then you just pay a fine. And if there is further injury, it's like eye for eye, life for life. And they're like, aha, that means that the baby is property, because he would only pay a fine if they were damaged. And if the woman was killed, it's life for life. So obviously God cares more about the mother than he does about the baby. It's like, hold on a second. Where did it say in the scripture that the harm, that's like, if there's no further harm, that's only talking about the mother? Where did it exclude the baby in that? Maybe the baby was just born early. It doesn't exclude the baby. Now, some people will say you could look at other ancient texts that it's kind of close to and say, no, they saw it as property, so this is saying it's property. Okay, but the Bible's different, because like in the Hammurabi, for example, the punishment for something like that is like you go kill the man's daughter or something like that. So it's a different form of justice. the you know, the God of the Bible is an improvement on, you know, as far as ethics in the Near Ancient East, you know. But even if it was property, your children are your property. It's just a matter of, are they your property like it's an object, or are they your property as in they are under your care? They belong to you. They don't belong to the state. They don't belong to a neighbor. They belong to you. They're your responsibility. You take care of them, you know? So even if, I guess really the first important thing to point out is an abortion is a deliberate killing. And in that particular circumstance, it's an accident, right? And maybe you don't know the woman's pregnant. Maybe you don't, you know, there's just other kind of reasons dealing with a civil case or something why you might deal with those situations differently, even if that is the case, which again, there's no distinction that made that it doesn't apply to the baby. But let's say it is property. Let's say that's what that scripture applies. Whose property is it? We're talking about the Near Ancient East. Whose property is it? It's the man's property, right? It would be the father's property. Do you really think that if that's the case, if that scripture is saying that property, that baby is the man's property, it's the man's offspring, the man's seed, the man's heir, that a woman should have full authority to go have an abortion and kill his heir? You think that scripture is going to affirm that? I don't think so. So to me, there's just no way to read that's going to be in their favor one way or another. But he was throwing out that, and he's like, well, all these Christians spend so much time talking about things that Jesus didn't even talk about. Okay, is he pro pedophilia? Is he pro like us not dealing with it because Jesus didn't just take a moment to just say, hey, we got to make sure we really talk about this so Muhammad doesn't marry a 6-year-old in the future? Like, we could just kind of surmise from the passages in the Bible that certain actions are wrong. We can figure it out. And if people mention Jeremiah 1:5 or other passages in the Bible, like people might reference John the Baptist, you know, reacting to Jesus in the womb. And people might say, well, all that you know, that doesn't mean they're really alive like that, and the Holy Spirit's just making them react, or Jeremiah, it's talking about, you know, God pre-knowing you. Well, that's the point of people bringing up those passages is to say that God cares about us, and the fact that God cares about you is all that matters. You matter to God, so that's all that matters. That's why it's wrong to take a life, because we're made in the image of God. Therefore, if you take a life, get back to the death penalty or people murdering people. That's why it says that your blood needs to be shed, because it's a very serious thing that you do. And it's biblical. So, at least Dick Durbin didn't want to accept it. But again, there's a clear difference between an innocent baby who has done no wrong versus maybe someone who's a serial child rapist. There's a big difference there. And it really says something about our culture that people are willing to jump through hoops to not punish the serial child rapist, but they're willing to kill that little innocent child. And I'm not saying the Pope is for abortion. Like, I think he believes that the church is clear on that. And it is. And it has been. And I hope it continues to be. But I think you run into an issue when you're trying to do that, oh, well, you compare it to the death penalty, whatever. Now, if you don't want to call me pro-life and you want to call me an abolitionist, that's fine. Or if you just want to call me anti-abortion, that's fine. Pro-choice people aren't actually pro-choice, right? Unless you're like a hardcore libertarian. But that breaks the non-aggression pact, though. So, a lot of people are like, oh, pro-choice didn't care about, bodily autonomy during the pandemic. So, isn't it crazy that people just try to pretend like all that didn't happen and they weren't saying you're grandma killers, and people wanted you denied health care if you went to the emergency room, and wanted you just exercised from society, excommunicated or whatever from society if you wouldn't get the jab, even though they got the jab and their kids got the jab and their grandparents got the jab. So if everyone else got the jab, then why aren't they protected? Why are they so scared of little old me? These people are looking at you sideways because you walked the wrong way down a grocery store aisle, because you wouldn't stand directly on the sticker that said 5 feet apart, because you wouldn't wear a mask in your car. We just want to memory hole all that stuff. We absolutely should not. That was a crazy time. That was an absolutely crazy time. Okay, staying on topic, but let's just shift to The View. The ladies at The View. Sunny is my least favorite ladies from The View. Who you guys can let me know who your least favorite is. Sunny has taken that spot for me. I know a lot of people don't like Joy. A lot of people don't like Whoopi. I don't like Sunny. I mean, I don't like the others too much, but Sunny is the absolute worst. Because I don't know. I feel like she ought to know better, but she just doesn't, because she's so blinded by her need to be ideological or whatever. But here's a clip from The View.
Because some people really deserve.
I am against the death penalty in all cases.
Well, I think
In all cases, and that's why I find there is a hypocrisy with certain Christians who are pro-life, but they will pull that electric chair switch. They are pro-life, but they have their AR-15s in their cabinet. They are pro-life, but they don't mind immigrant families being torn from each other. They are pro-life, but they don't care about little children's subsidies being taken away from them. That is not pro-life.
I was just going to say, I'm
Okay, so Sunny. Okay, so Sunny, it drives me up a wall when we have conversations about abortion and people bring up cases of rape, which people who force themselves on women and do something that terrible, that awful, that traumatic, it's disgusting. Obviously, it's not legal and it shouldn't be legal. And those people should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But Sunny here doesn't believe that a child rapist, for example, should get the death penalty. But Sunny, people like Sunny, believe that it's evil if you say, hey, you cannot kill that child, because that is a human being made in the image of God. They should be entitled to the right to life, and we shouldn't discriminate against them and allow violence to be committed against them for things outside of their control. It's a very difficult situation, and we should do our best to help people through it. But it's wild to me that people are more offended with that child being alive than they are about, I don't know. It seems like there's more aggression toward the baby than there is toward the rapist. A lot of times when we have these conversations, I'm not outside of these conversations, how people might perceive it in real life, outside of these debates. Perhaps that's not the case, but that's really the vibe that I get in these conversations. But Sunny just told you she's against the death penalty in all situations. That's wild to me. Like if we just knew without a shadow of a doubt that this person did it, that they maybe raped and impregnated a child, you wouldn't want them to be executed. Like, why? I don't understand that if you're so pro choice, you believe that we can take the lives of the preborn And I'm not sure what kind of limitations Sunny is for. I would assume she's probably not for any limitations, and will just go the route of, oh well, nobody does a late term. That's what I would guess, which isn't true, but it's the sort of the rhetoric or whatever. But you would be against someone who has had due process, who has been convicted by a jury of their peers, who's had chances for appeals, and then goes and faces the electric chair or whatever. I don't understand that. To me, that's wildly inconsistent. To me, that's morally depraved. I'd love to debate her about it. It doesn't make any sense. The rest of the stuff that she said, oh, how can you be pro-life and have an AR-15? What did my AR-15 do to you, Sonny? What did it do to anybody else? What did it? Guns are inanimate objects, Sonny. There was a terror attack in London. By the way, we talked about it yesterday. The guy who did it, his name was Jihad. Could you be more on the nose than your name being Jihad? But anyway, he used a car and then started stabbing people. And I think there was 2 who were dead, and I can't remember how many were injured. But I think there's 2 casualties. Attacked a Jewish synagogue. So people can find other ways to kill people other than guns. But these are inanimate objects that people choose to use to harm other people. So you picking on the AR-15, which people used to go, some people use them to hunt, people use them for protection, people use them to just shoot cans in the backyard. They're pretty neat. But people do have a right to protect themselves, to bear arms in case we have a tyrannical government. And since these people will go on TV and talk about how we live under a fascist regime, it seems pretty crazy to me how much they attack the Second Amendment, since they already think we live under a dictator. Doesn't that sound crazy? Oh, Trump's a fascist. Let's take all your guns. Oh, they won't say that they're taking all your guns. Oh, but you're a hypocrite if you just have an AR-15. Out of me and Sonny, I'm the one who doesn't believe in killing kids. She's the one who believes in killing kids. And I said that on a post recently. He's like, I don't know anybody who believes in killing kids. I'm like, sure you do. They didn't reply back, but sure you do. They just don't want to acknowledge that they're children. You think that makes it any better? That you don't have the guts to say what you support? Get out of here. Get out of here. Oh, you have an AR-15. Oh, you want to, what else should you say? Get rid of subsidies? She probably means school lunches. How it used to be is they'd be by income. I grew up on school, subsidized school lunch. At one point in time, it was just reduced. Where at one point food got more expensive through the years, but I remember just paying like 50 cents for lunch, and then the other times it was totally free. And throughout my whole school career, my lunch was subsidized or free. And by the time there were 7 of us, and by the time the last 2 were in school, we were living in like a suburban area, and my parents just kind of were like, we could qualify, but we don't need it. So they opted to not do that, and they just paid for lunch. If you don't need it, and then there's people who are rich who don't need it, and they can take care of their kids like that. I went to school in a rural area. There were some wealthy people out there. There were people who were dirt poor, but there were people who definitely didn't need it. So this idea, we should just pay for everyone. Why? Because it just sounds nice. Okay. But nothing is free. Nothing is free. And by the way, y'all think they just do this out of the kindness of their hearts? They do it because it's a subsidy to farmers and other stuff like that with the food or whatever. So there's always a reason, and you can think that's fine, but I just want to let y'all know there's always a reason. People in the government don't do a lot of stuff just out of the kindness of their heart. I'm not saying that some of it isn't think of the children, but you know, some of it is just like taking your money to buy products up. Just like soda companies wanted their stuff to be paid for through SNAP benefits or welfare or whatever. So they're like, oh, well, this is a good way to get calories for poor people. And they paid for different studies and stuff. And if you fought against soda being on like SNAP benefits or whatever, they would say that you were racist, didn't care about black kids. There's always a scheme. There's always a scheme to try to take your government to take your dollars to get them to invest it and be like welfare claims for corporations and businesses and stuff. Anyway, I think she said what? Did she say one more thing? Let me see.
Pro-life, but they don't mind immigrant families being torn from each other. They are pro-life, but they
the immigrant families. Sonny's a lawyer, which I don't know if she was ever was she a prosecutor or anything like that? People are separated from their children all of the time. CPS separates parents from their kids. Obviously, well, sometimes maybe there's issues where CPS shouldn't do it and they're kind of overstepping, but there's situations where CPS takes the kids away from the parents because they're in a hostile situation, they're in an unsafe situation, or they at least have an investigated unsafe situation. Those people are separated from their kids. Divorce separates parents from their children. Crime and getting convicted and going to jail separates fathers from their children, mothers from their children. And we don't just say, oh, well, daddy, he embezzled a lot of money, but he really, really cares about little Johnny, so he shouldn't go to prison. Or Junebug, he stole a lot of money and stabbed somebody, but he really cares about his daughter, so we gotta just let them back on the street so he can be dad of the year. We don't do that. People do all this special privilege stuff when it comes to illegal immigration, and it doesn't make any sense. And it really annoys people to see the double standard and how much people care about people who aren't from this country, who are taking advantage of being here. And why wouldn't you? Because America's great. But they came here illegally, and they should go back. Because if they don't, you're just going to incentivize more people to come, including very bad people. Maybe they're coming here for economic reasons, but they're still doing bad stuff. And there's just more crime. Sonny. So I'm sorry. If you want people to, by the way, you don't have to separate the families. They can all leave together. That's a choice. That's a choice. So if you don't want to call me pro-life, you guys aren't really pro-choice anyway. You're pro-abortion. You're pro-abortion. But we understand that there's political reasons why we use these different titles. You mean you're pro-choice to choose abortion, and we mean that we are pro-protecting the right to life. And if you want to say, well, what about the death penalty? You can lose your rights after going through due process. You can have your different rights taken away from you after due process. But it's about protecting the right to life. That's why it's pro-life. But if you want to say that you're pro-abortion and I'm anti-abortion, and we could just get to the meat and potatoes of the issues, that's fine. That's fine with me. That's fine. If you want to say, well, you're a bad person because you don't think we should fund all the kids in school. it's still worse to kill babies, Sonny. And that's what we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about. You're not gonna distract. It's still worse to kill babies, Sonny. Like, but you have an AR-15. My AR-15 hasn't killed any babies, Sonny. And they always pick it on the AR-15. I wonder if she thinks it stands for assault rifle. I wonder. Let me look at some of your comments. There's a difference between murder and righteous justice. State-sanctioned murder, I suppose. Sonny is against the death penalty in all cases, except if it's a baby. Yeah, Sonny's ignorance is stunning. It's always stunning. Sonny is my least favorite one on that show. Tina said Whoopi being on The View ruined her past movies. Someone said free school lunch was started because kids weren't healthy enough to be drafted. That's interesting. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, let's talk about Megyn Kelly before we go. So Megyn Kelly has getting a lot of pushback lately because of her association with Tucker. She'll platform Tucker and not saying anything about Candace Owens. Now, she hasn't had Candace Owens on her show. At least I don't think so. But she's not saying anything. I guess because everyone else is piling on. So she got really frustrated with all these people trying to make demands of her. They're like, it's like, if you agree with them, you should agree with them. But people are just kind of confused. And she's like, well, we're all the same side. Like, I'm against the left. And then people found a retweet of something. She might have wrote it, but she at least retweeted it. And it was like a piece like toward the left on why you have to call out the extremist on your side. And it's like, oh, I agree with that sentiment. You have to call out the extremists on your side, because if you are silent, they will eventually become the majority and they will ruin your party. So I want to go ahead and play her video for you guys.
I know what Hamas does, trust me, and I've been covering it. But that doesn't mean that the devastation and destruction can go on forever. Israel's now taken out Hezbollah. It's decimated Hamas. It had a war with Iran that we almost got dragged into, in more full flower. It's time to wrap it up in this American's view. I am entitled to that opinion, and I will not be shamed out of it by being called an anti-Semite. Now, as for...
Okay, so I think that's fine if you want to have that opinion. I don't think it's a fine opinion, but if you want to have that opinion, that's fine. I think she's kind of too smart to have that particular opinion, and I don't try to mean that in too of an insulting way, but I just find it to be really unhelpful, because Israel just agreed to a peace deal that the U.S. laid out, and Hamas leaders said that they weren't into that. Of course, they don't want to disarm. Wars sometimes take years. The Civil War, for example, wasn't done in it was done in a couple years, but it was devastating in the time that it all happened. So, and there were people who wanted it to end, who advocated for it to end. And what if it ended with the U.S. still being broken and slavery still being in the South and the objectives of Abraham Lincoln and the North not being met? What if we didn't get General Grant, getting total surrender, unconditional surrender? Excuse me. That's how I put it. What if we didn't get that? People wanted it to end earlier than 65. I get that. Lincoln was getting pressure from a lot of folks, all sides. He was getting really frustrated from his former general before he got Grant, because he kept losing and losing and losing, and people were frustrated with the different losses. And there were so many people dying. and there are people who were willing to fight to keep the country together, but they didn't know how they felt about slavery. People's minds had to change about slavery. And things like Uncle Tom's Cabin, for example, started softening people's hearts and introducing the North to something that they didn't really know about that was really, really ugly and disgusting. And people's hearts had to soften. And eventually so many lives were taken. It was like, okay, well, this war has to be about something bigger than that. And it did end, with the end of slavery and the Union coming back together. And then Lincoln, they wanted the country to, heal after that. But a lot of lives were lost, and it's horrific. But isn't it important that you do achieve your military objectives? In the case of like Israel, you want them to have done all this stuff and not get the rest of their hostages back, at least their bodies. I don't know how many more of those people are alive. I'm always surprised. I was always surprised when I'm like, oh gosh, someone's alive. But they at least want their bodies. They want live people, but they at least want their bodies. And they want Hamas to lay down their arms and be done. But if their military objectives aren't achieved, what? It's just a draw? The people who are losing the war should consider surrendering. But everyone's like, oh, Israel's got to do this. Israel's got to do this. Oh, Israel. Oh, Israel. Why aren't the people who are losing giving up? Because their people dying to them is a perk. There's a reason why they use them as human shields. It's horrific. It's horrific. Trump was like, okay, if they don't agree to this plan, we're going to give Israel the A-OK to go finish the war how they need to finish the war. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that means that they go to Qatar and take out the hedge there, or if they got some kind of secret tunnel. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do to go beast mode and finish the job, to go get their people back or whatever. But they want to achieve their military objectives. To me, to just be like, wrap it up, like as if they could just BB could just click his heels 3 times and bring the hostages home. Megyn, how do you suggest they wrap it up? I guess is what I'm asking. Because you can say it's going on so long. It's going on so long. Hamas can end it at any time. Hamas can end it at any time. It's the responsibility of the people who are winning the war to just give up? Why don't the losers just surrender? Why didn't they accept Trump's deal? Because they hate their enemies more than they love their children. And if you teach the world that you can kill a bunch of Jews and kidnap their babies and keep them in terror tunnels, and they can get away with it because they will look at it as getting away with it, what's to stop someone else from doing that again elsewhere, not just to Israel, but other parts of the world? If we could just give up because it's too mean. And I understand there's a loss of life, and that is horrific. But what is the price of failure? So you could be like, wrap it up. I think there's just more nuance than that, Kelly. Or Megyn Kelly. So she knows enough to just be like, wrap it up. Please send Bibi your brilliant plans to wrap it up. And as far as like, oh, we almost got dragged in war with Iran. Well, Tucker seemed to think so, that it was going to, like, I don't know, cause a collapse. I didn't think that. And I thought we should have used Israel to take out their nuclear facilities forever. So I was glad it happened. And it wasn't the end of the world. And a lot of people are preaching doom and gloom. You should look at them sideways because they got it wrong. And I don't think it's because they're dumb. I think it's because they wanted to freak other people out. and they don't care about blowing their credibility because there's people who still listen to them.
For my decision to platform Tucker, too bad, too fucking bad. I love him. We're friends. I don't think he's an anti-Semite at all, but I don't really care. I think Tucker's a very important, valuable voice in the national conversation. I'm thrilled.
I think Candace is
so I don't know her. I don't really know her that well. Although I will tell you, we recently had a very nice exchange before all this. And I was just reminded in my own head that Candace is a young mom of like 3 young kids. She's under a lot of pressure. She's got a big show. She's been under attack since she came onto the public airwaves, and she's been under attack constantly. And it's my prerogative if I say to myself, that is not someone I wish to attack. I do not feel that way. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I felt this way. And now that people have made my attacking her the stakes of my relationship with whatever person is saying this, I'm going to have to say goodbye to that person. I won't do it. Now it's like a point of pride.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing as the BLM folks trying to make you raise your fist. The answer is no.
Yeah, that's what Candace was saying about people who are trying to come after them for Christ is King. It's like, no, people are using it like the BLM folks. I don't think that's a good comparison, but let's go with the Tucker thing. I don't really think that Tucker is an anti-Semite. I think he like does he really like hate Jews or whatever? As Ben Shapiro said when he was asked about Candace Owens being an anti-Semite, he said, I don't like using that word. It's unhelpful. But I question a lot of Tucker's really smart. I do think he's playing a game. Like why did he attack Ben so hard? For example, one of the most prominent Jewish commentators there is in the most prominent conservative people there is. Why try to go after him and like diminish him and say things like, oh, you're not patriotic because you're focusing so much on, you're talking about another country while people are dying of fentanyl. Okay, but Tucker didn't keep that same energy himself. He went to Russia, bragged about like, oh, look how clean the train station is, and look at the grocery stores. Oh my God, it's great in Russia. Like, okay, in that portion that you went to, like, you know, and he platforms people who are 9/11 truthers and who believe that Winston Churchill was the villain of World War II, and like and then Tucker had a weird rant about like we didn't really win anything in World War II and we didn't really preserve anything in the West, and Candace Owens has had those sorts of attitudes too, like we shouldn't have even got involved. Like to me, what they do is they say things to undermine the West, and I don't I guess it's easy to assume maybe they're getting paid by the Qatar or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but Tucker has flipped on a lot of things, like Douglas Murray, for example. You know, he thought he was so brilliant, and now, you know, he changed his tune on that. But let me there's an example Milk Bar TV put together. Even if we like take out this Israel stuff, Megyn Kelly, Tucker, they're both on Fox. They're both journalists. And to remind everybody, I used to DVR Tucker. I used to really, really like his show. And it eventually got old. Let's invite on a really dumb liberal, do the Tucker laugh and the really like baffled Tucker face. To me, at first, it was good TV. But then it was just like, it got old. Same thing over and over and over again. Let's make fun of the dumb liberal or whatever. And so I eventually grew tired of it. But at one point in time, I really loved it. I was so excited to meet him at the inauguration in 2017. But when he started his platform with X, he invited on that guy who claimed that he slept with Obama and did crack cocaine with him or whatever. And he's like, he even took a lie detector test. And he told his audience that, but he didn't tell his audience that he failed the lie detector test. I'm like, okay, well, why would you give this information and then omit that important thing that hurts his case and hurts his credibility? because he wasn't saying that what the man was saying was true, but he was just trying to make the case that what he was saying was credible, so people could draw their own conclusions about what happened. And he didn't push back on him like at all in the whole entire interview. So I thought it was just really irresponsible to just have no kind of journalistic integrity or curiosity, and to just like platform someone to like tell their story when they have all these conspiracies about someone who is the former president of the United States. Now, I don't like Obama. I never liked Obama. Some people on the right were like, well, I didn't like his policies, but I like Obama. I never liked him. I don't like him. I don't like him or his policies. So I'm not trying to stick up for Obama so much, but just as far as things being true, I think Tucker came off looking like someone who would do anything just for clicks and views, and maybe he wanted to embarrass Obama or whatever. But that interview wasn't about seeking the truth. I don't think so. That's not how it came off. So I think there's been an issue with Tucker for a while, how he conducts himself, and he attacked Ben, and he never gave Ben an opportunity to like just sit down, break bread, and talk about their differences and debate them. But he'll platform all these weird people with these weird conspiracies, and then they'll get a higher platform, and they'll keep spreading around sometimes blatantly anti-Semitic stuff, or revisionist history on World War II, and just really weird things. Really weird things. But she says she thinks Tucker is such an important voice. I'm not saying he should be deplatformed, but I think if you have the opportunity to have him on, then you should just kind of challenge him more on these things. Like Candace Owens, someone talked about how they really liked Candace Owens, but they started to lose interest in her when she had her interview with Andrew Tate. And they were glad that she was interviewing Andrew Tate at first, because she thought she was going to ask him some like hard questions, but she gave like a glowing review. Like a glowing kind of interview, very softball, was smiling so much, let him lie about like his criminal cases and conduct. They're like, oh, well, all this stuff happened so long ago. People change, people have a dark past, but and it's like, okay, well, it wasn't as long ago as they're pretending, and you're just gonna like speed past all this stuff and be like, oh, I wish you were still a Christian. With Candace Owens, the moment that she met him, she knew that he was a pimp. So it's just really weird, and she'll still defend. She's still defending them for like a long while, but that's what some people decided, like, something's wrong here. Anyway, here's a little example of Tucker just kind of switching up.
I think U.S. military aid to Israel, and the implied security guarantees, some explicit, but many implied security guarantees of the United States to Israel, probably haven't helped Israel that much long term. It's a rich country with a highly capable population. Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself. Israel cannot exist without being propped up by the United States. Its nuclear program came from the United States. Its weapons come from the United States. Its economy is supported by the United States. That country couldn't exist not for a week, without U.S. backing. I think.
So it's just an example. There's also like examples of him kind of switching up on like Sharia law and different stuff like that. And I just kind of wonder why they're going so soft on like Islam. Because Candace Owens, she's like, oh, Israel, they've always killed Christians and blamed Muslims. Like, we're infidels. Like, what are you talking about? Muslims definitely have killed Christians themselves. It was not safe when my dad went to Pakistan to preach the gospel. Very dangerous for him to have altar calls. It was very dangerous for the people he worked with. Come on, Candace. So Megyn Kelly can do whatever she wants to do, and if she wants to still have them on, that's fine. But I just, well, I don't understand. I know that they're your friends, but people start looking at you sideways when you won't push back more on this stuff. And as far as people ganging up on Candace and like, oh, well, she's been attacked this whole time she's been out there. Well, first of all, Candace says stuff to invite attacks and criticism. Things like, oh, look at this ad with this person in a wheelchair in underwear. Why are they catering to disabled people? Like, she got so mad about Kim Kardashian making a commercial. And I thought that was one of the most like egregious episodes that she made. And I covered that at the time. For people, some people are like, oh, why are people all just switching up on Candace Owens suddenly? I've always had criticism for Candace Owens. I have. And I haven't only had criticism for Candace Owens, but I've criticized her when I definitely disagreed with her. That was a big controversy, but you know, and she starts beef with people. Nicole Arbor, Kim Klacik, and when Daily Wire got into the beef with Steven, she jumped in there too. You know, she's been beefing with people. Blair White, though I wouldn't have called Blair she either, but Candace has liked her drama. There's people who stopped watching her because it was basically a gossip channel. So it said Tucker definitely altered his opinions, well aware of the dangers of Islam, then has a strange none on who blames Jews for everything. Yeah, that was a very weird kind of eye-opening episode with Tucker. You know, I just don't have it in me to watch all their stuff all the time, but and you don't really have to. One thing that was so great about Wes Huff when he debated Billy Carson is into a lot of different conspiracies, ancient aliens, all the other kind of stuff, but he talks about the Bible, and he talks about like these like emerald tablets and all kinds of other stuff about the Bible and so on. That's just wrong. And so Wes Huff did some reaction videos to his stuff because he was invited on Flagrant, and I think he went on Joe Rogan's show too. And so a guy who's Billy's friend just decided to have him on because that guy's a Christian. He seems more like a baby Christian or whatever, but he decided to have Billy on his podcast so he could talk about some stuff, but he didn't know a bunch of stuff. So he looked up Wes Huff, found his stuff, and was like, oh, can you like come on the podcast? And apparently he told Billy, and Billy didn't seem to care. And so Wes Huff would have flown out, but he couldn't fly out. And so they did a Zoom, and Wes Huff started just dismantling the things that Billy believed about the Bible very easily. It was just, if you haven't seen it, it was like all the talk, like some months back, maybe, I don't know if it was a year ago, maybe. It was all the talk, and we talked about it at the time, but it was just like very masterful, because by the time he ended up correcting Billy about the things that he got wrong about the Bible, and then he questioned like how he came to the different conclusions that he came to, and it was just really evident that Billy didn't do his research very well. And once it became clear that he didn't have like a consistent, well thought out way of like gathering information and verifying it, once they got to like alien stuff or whatever, which Wes didn't want to engage in too much, and Billy decided to end up leaving. Once it got to that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, well, if he didn't have a good way of verifying this other stuff, then he probably doesn't have a good way of verifying these other things either. So even though Wes didn't have all that other knowledge into all the other conspiracies, he already did enough damage. So I said that to say, Candace and Tucker, they have proven to be very skillful in their manipulations, but manipulations there's still manipulations one way or another, and they can say something that's true, like, oh, this guy did a lie detector test, but they'll omit something that adds proper perspective, like, by the way, he failed it, so they do that kind of stuff all the time. And I don't trust either one of them. I don't know what their motivation is exactly for going the routes that they're going. I don't buy that Candace is just crazy and leave it at that. I think these are decisions that they're making to operate in the way that they are. Like Tucker's platforming someone, you just interviewed somebody, has a very tiny following, very, smaller than mine, and is going to uplift them, and they're into a bunch of different conspiracies and stuff. But now they have a bigger platform. Now they have a bigger audience to spread, all the kind of crazy stuff that they believe. And it's just really amazing that Tucker will have all these other people, but never sat down with Ben Shapiro to break bread and like hash out their disagreements. And he just decided to, attack him. I think to undermine a pillar in the conservative movement who also happened to be Jewish too. So I think it's important to speak out. Megyn Kelly can make whatever decision she's going to make, but I don't want the right to be what the left is. Because it got the crazy people on the left took over so much that there were people who knew that they were nuts. Like, okay, well, all this, everybody has to admit they're racist, even though they're not racist. Thing is crazy. But they would just keep at it and keep letting it go on and on and on, and all this trans stuff. They know it's wrong to have these men and women sports, but they gotta say it because that's what the radicals in their party believes, and they're so loud, and then it just takes over their party, and now they're in a really bad spot. They're in a really bad spot, and they're so radicalized. Their young people believe that violence is okay, like political violence is okay. So their woke left has ruined the Democrats, and we have a woke right. I know people don't like that term or whatever, but there is like a horseshoe theory going on where these people believe in systemic racism, all this other stuff, always got somebody to blame, and it's always like an oppressed kind of matrix. These people on the woke right always got somebody to blame, and unfortunately it's usually the Jews. Usually it's the Jews. So anyway, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. You guys can go to blacktunies.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it just costs to stream, run that site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. You guys can check out my book, Bigger. If you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, there's a link in the description that will take you to my page where you guys can pre-order Bigger. If you can, I very much do appreciate it. Please support. Please support. Bigger. It's a beautiful, picture book about a baby dinosaur who wants to be bigger. So go ahead and check it out. It's a great story. Also, there is a link, an interest form in the description about the painting parties. If you live in Michigan, you guys can do it in person. If you live elsewhere, you guys can do it online, and we will go through a painting class together. It'll be really fun. So go ahead and sign up if you're interested in that. All right. God bless you guys, and I will see you on Monday.